Hello again, and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is BGFH, and I am back for another VR accessibility video. Was going to unlock a different video for you guys today, but a lot has happened in the last few days, and I decided to record this video and share it instead because it seems to be a pretty hot topic in recent days. So, I've done a couple of videos now about VR accessibility. One on like low vision and head tracking. Basically don't make the interface big enough to see, to allow head tracking, so that if I lean forward to try to read something, it doesn't just get put. It's not at a set distance and it gets automatically pushed back. You know, to please not do that in the interface because that makes it very hard for gamers and users like myself who actually are legally blind, or even just people who have low vision, to be able to use and read your interface. And then I recently did another video on movement in virtual reality. So, teleportation versus full movement. How you turn in the VR environment. It could be like a snap movement, which some games use, or just freely moving your head, or freely being able to move your right analog stick or motion controller, whatever it is. So I've done a video on that. I have created a VR accessibility playlist to make it easy for people to find these types of VR tech or VR tips and kind of recommendations from a blind slash low vision perspective, on the channel. Found it make it much easier to find. What I want to talk about today is kind of an epiphany that I had earlier this week. I've been having some really interesting conversations on Twitter the last few days. There's been a VR conference this week, and there and Ian Hamilton posted an excellent article that posted up to Gamasutra earlier this week on that's just really detailing virtual VR accessibility, virtual reality accessibility from a variety of different disabilities, like vision, hearing, epilepsy, motor. Definitely go check that out. I know I for a while it was trending, so it was actually on the front page of Gamasutra. But yeah, just I will if I remember, I will try to put a description to that article in the description below this video, just so you guys can quickly refer to it. Or otherwise, definitely just follow me on Twitter at bgfh79, and I've tweeted it several times there, just from people's retweets and stuff like that. But having all these conversations, and there's been a couple of kind of just reoccurring issues that I've been having while trying virtual reality games and virtual reality experiences. And I've been trying to figure out what would be a good way to make to make this easier for people with different abilities, people with different disabilities, but that wouldn't drive everyone else crazy. How do we make it work? Because originally, about a week ago, around the time I was recording the movement in VR video, I was actually trying to figure out. I was thinking about shooting another video about how much of a pain it is for me to use some of these menus and interfaces in a virtual reality product. It's great that, in the other videos, I'm like, please include options for this, please include options for that, or have this as the default, but allow this. Those are still totally applicable. But the problem is, okay, you launch this virtual reality application and you start it and you're like, oh, okay, well, the movement isn't quite the way I like it. It's not comfortable. Let me see if they have a different movement option, or maybe there's some other sensitivity, or whatever kind of options that you might want to adjust. Well, the problem is a lot of the main menus, option screens, and things like that are really tough to see if you are low vision or legally blind, such as myself. And originally, I was going to shoot a video demoing to you. Not sure how well it would work. But basically, let me describe what I sometimes will have to do. Because it's clunky, it is a real pain. And I think I mentioned it in another video to some degree. But basically, so, in a lot of games, like I said, there'll be some option. Usually it has something to do with movement or that kind of, jerky head movement where you move the analog stick and it kind of goes in like a 30 degree snap kind of a thing. And I don't like that. I like it to be much smoother because to me, that is uncomfortable. And most of the games that I've played or experiences that I've played have been generous enough to allow you to change that. So that's just an example. But what happens is I'll go into an experience or a game, and I will find that okay, I'm unable to read the menu, or maybe I can read the main menu because typically some of those are larger. But then when you go under options, because there are, of course, several more options than you would have on a main menu, the text is a lot smaller. And add to that, maybe when I lean in, it gets pushed back, so it's still really hard. So what I end up having to do, and there's a few things that really compound what makes this really difficult, is I will lift up my headset, not take it off my head, but I'll usually take my left hand, lift up my headset, hope that what I'm looking at is mirrored on the screen on the computer monitor, and that it's in a big enough window. And then I'll try to get closer to the monitor to try to read it. And if it's really bad, people just in general have complained about, clarity of text in VR. So sometimes even leaning into the monitor when it's mirrored is, a little blurry, a little bit harder to read. So sometimes I'll even have to do the Windows magnifier shortcut and zoom in a little bit further just to try to be able to read the text. It could be options, it could be tutorial text, like, oh, I can't get past this part, and there's floating instructional text telling me how to do something, but I can't read it. That's another problem that I encounter. Now, think about that. So I'm holding the headset with one hand. I am leaning in toward the monitor to try to read it. I'm using my right hand to move the mouse to try to figure out what's going on. Now, also in VR, think about this. On top of that, when you're looking at a tutorial, an options menu, whatever it happens to be, the problem is that's in 360 degree space. And what happens with that is you better hope that there's a recenter view option in the game or the experience. Because here's the thing, is while I'm doing all this crazy balancing act of trying to do 4 different things at once just to read something, because all these options and stuff are in 3D and 360 degree space, I hope that the direction that I'm facing when I'm looking at these options or these tutorials or whatever, I'm hoping that they are that they're in front of me, so that when I lift up my headset and I look at the screen, that they're in view. And on top of that, I have to try to keep really still, or I even have to kind of tilt or turn my head a little bit just so that the text that I want to read is centered in the view. So, just for the fun of it, try doing that. Try lifting your headset up and then trying to rotate your head so that you're actually looking at the text that you might want to read within your headset. And then, like I said, if you add magnifier on top of that, we're like, okay, it's not in focus. Do I have to just move my mouse because it's on the screen? Or do I have to turn my head because it's actually not on my screen? Or do I have to do a little bit of a both? It sucks. It's really difficult and not something I really recommend. But unfortunately, sometimes that's what I have to do if I really, really need to be able to read something. So, having all these configuration options, audio settings and movement settings, controller remapping, all these things are great, and all these things, yes, please, please, please include them. Movement settings, please include them. But a simple epiphany came to me the other morning when I was talking to a couple people on Twitter. And what we're looking at here is just a pre-launch screen for a game for Mafia 3 that I haven't actually played yet, but I just fired it up to see. I was actually trying to find a game that wouldn't, like, I've got Steam in the background here, and I got this Mafia 3 settings, kind of a splash window here. I was trying to find a game that would come up that I could have in the background of this video that didn't launch you into the game right away, that brought you to some kind of configuration or configurator, before the game actually starts. A lot of Unity games will have this. You launch a game in Unity, and you'll often see, there's a pretty common one where it's like, the main screen has, what display do you want it? What graphical quality do you want it? Do you want it at fast or good or fantastic? Some of them have a few more options, but basically, I recognize those are really common for Unity. There's a few other games, and like I said, I was having trouble thinking of ones that that had different splash screens like that, or different setting screens. But actually, for virtual reality, this, I think, should hopefully, I would love to see this become a standard. Allow either when you launch the game, I know, yes, it's one more step. They'll have, sighted people or, fully able-bodied people will have to click one more button, a play button or an OK button. But either have, when you start the game, before it actually, or a VR experience, before it launches, open up some kind of a configuration window on your desktop. Or, like if I'm in Steam or in the Oculus, let's see, I've got the Oculus window here. I've got like 40 things open here. Oculus window. If I right-click one of these, I get some options. I get some things here. And maybe even that would be a way to do it, as long as the user knows that they have an option. As long as they know that there's an option to bring up a configuration settings option screen outside of the VR experience, that would make things a lot easier for anyone with a disability, be it vision, motor, hearing, any of that, because then you're looking at it on your traditional flat screen like you are for any other application, and you can use any type of assistive technology that one would normally use. I guess aside from, if you want to go one step further, you definitely want to make sure that it uses standard Windows elements or standard operating system elements. Like if I were to start, a JAWS or System Access or NVDA right now, I highly doubt a screen reader is going to read this graphical like translucent options screen. It's not regular combo boxes. It's not edit boxes. It's not, your standard Windows controls that you would find like on a web page or in a control panel settings or something. There's that part of it too to think about. But the point is that at least if I really had to, I could turn on Windows Magnifier and I could look at, okay, just look at all my options here. That's really bad contrast, by the way. That light gray on a darker gray. This up here is okay. But this stuff, come on, guys, that's really bad contrast. That's not good. So you get the idea, and I would include, maybe you could have just like a regular multi-page dialog box that would show, your tabs. Maybe, like I said, if Oculus could have, but when you add a game to the Oculus Store, or you add a game to Steam, if they added a requirement that said, please allow, either when you launch the game or by, like I said, I could right-click in Steam, I could right-click this Mafia 3. I've got all kinds of options here. But if one of these options were to, bring up that external configuration or options screen, that would be excellent. But have a requirement, no matter what kind of platform you're using, and you could have tabs across the top. You could have visual. All of your things that you would have under your options menu within the game or within the experience. You could have your graphics, your sound, your gameplay. For VR, I would even go as far as to say, clearly identify, like I said, visual, audio, movement. There should be some stuff for, under movement, not just for, free movement, but that, having look options like your snap versus free look, or your teleport versus, free walking with WASD or an analog stick. But those different types of things, as we figure out what things we need in, audio would have, of course, have like visual indicators, subtitles if we figure out how to do that properly. And also for like movement, or you would have things to account for, the height. That's a big issue for people who are in a wheelchair or who don't have full range of movement. Being able to adjust your height or your options. There was actually a talk that I just watched last night, and it was a really interesting talk actually. And he was actually talking about not just height, but like, what if somebody is bedridden and they can't get up because it's painful. Figuring out an option where instead of if you're laying in bed and you're looking up at the ceiling, in VR you're going to be looking up at the ceiling. But to remap that to say, have a checkbox or have a thing that says, when you're looking up, treat that as looking forward, or whatever position you could recenter, and then treat that as looking forward, not looking up. It was a really interesting video. Again, check my Twitter feed, and I linked to it there. But yeah, I think because this would be a really simple yet effective way for anyone to customize their experience more easily and more accessibly before even launching into a VR experience or a VR game. Because again, think about it. I've been comparing it to Vision. I described sometimes my nightmare procedure for just navigating an interface with being legally blind? What about somebody who needs to remap the controls and they can't move, or they, what they want them to do, you have to use a certain button, or you have to use a pointing type mechanism, mechanic. If you get into, again, that video that I watched last night, he was talking about somebody who couldn't get past a part in a tutorial because the game mechanic, it was so specific in what they wanted them to do, that they were not able to do it, and then, without any sort of change or customization options, they were stuck. They wouldn't be able to get past that point without help, and if they couldn't get past the tutorial, more than likely, when those same tasks would be required in the main game, they would be stuck. So, hearing, physical, visual, all these things. If we were able to just customize this in just like a simple little, you've got a tab here, 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 just like any kind of tabular system, be it on your phone, on Windows, on a Mac, whatever, and then just have these different options. The more I think about it, like I said, maybe the first time you ever start an experience, it should come up with this type of screen automatically. But again, I think each platform holder should almost make it a requirement. I mean, it could be because I would love to see, as we're still trying to figure things out in VR, I would like to see some standards so that people don't get left behind. And so that, if we do it now, it'll be a lot easier than, oh, well, now we got to make all these changes and they're imposing new requirements on us, yada, yada, yada. I would love to see that now, so that it just becomes a thing. But like I said, so the first time you launch an application, it would come up automatically, and you would be given the options for anyone could set things the way they want. Maybe once you do that, it would, the next time you launch it, it'll just go into the game or the experience. But you should always have the option to, let's say, right-click, and then that configuration screen should clearly be one of those options. Be it in Steam, be it in Oculus, be it wherever. Right-click, I should have an option to open that tabular window. That would be super, super helpful. It wouldn't be invasive. You can still be able to, you should still be able to adjust things while you're in the VR experience, sure. But this would be a much more accessible front-end way to do it that I think would provide be the most helpful for a lot more people. So I don't know why it took me forever to come up with some, just like I said, I've been struggling with this off and on with different experiences since I got my Rift, and I don't know why it took me so long to think of something so simple. I still play regular games, and I see all these, I'll launch a game, and like I said, Unity games, they come up with that little splash screen all the time. I've seen a few other games do it, and it just never occurred to me until I was having a conversation on Twitter the other day, and all of a sudden it just hit me. I'm like, wait a minute. Why complicate things? Because if I can't navigate the VR interface, what good are all these options going to do if I can't find them? It just hit me. So I hope this was helpful. Please feel free to share it with any VR developers. Please, anyone, really interested in VR. Again, platform holders, Oculus, Valve, Sony, game engine. Maybe make this on the engine level. It's like, oh, this is just one of the things that comes up. Unity. If it's a Unity VR experience, they can have some additional VR options, VR tabs on that splash screen. And if you right-click the game before going into it, you can bring it up there too. Unreal. Those are the big ones, but, CryEngine, whatever it is. But all these middleware, these engine developers, anyone who might find this useful, like I said, I'm trying to think of different ways to help describe and demonstrate ways that we can try to make VR experiences more accessible to people. Because, like I said, I find this stuff really fascinating. I love it. I want to play with it. I want the games, the learning experiences, the educational stuff, all that kind of stuff. I would love to experience it. So, and I'm trying to think of things not just from, yes, this channel is more geared toward blind and low vision, but if I think of an idea for another type of disability or another type of situation, I'll try to post that here too. But hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys found it helpful or gave you guys some ideas. Please share it with whomever you think might like this or find it helpful. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. And until next time, I will talk to you guys later.